What could I do? What could I make in blue and gold in here? I don't know, but I'm starting to consider it. Goodness gracious, it looks good.
Name is one of the oldest royal titles in ancient Egyptian history. So there you have it. No mass conspiracy, just damaged walls and age. Just look at the state of the ceiling right above it. It's
Yeah, look at the ceiling. That's actually, I appreciate this. You see, what she could have done is that she could have told you, that's how it is, bye. You gotta believe me because I got the titles. Instead, she's actually showing you a better image so that people can look at this and be like, well, to be fair, this is collapsing. And then this piece of the cartouche is completely gone. So I can start to see even the bottom has been completely chipped. You can see this. And then we've got a little spacecraft. I can see that there isn't basically anything left when it comes to the second plastering. Be nice if some of this plastering was at the bottom, but I appreciate this.
absolutely no wonder that the plaster fell off with all of that crumbling stone. If you still don't believe me, all you have to do is just shift your gaze a little to the left
Yeah.
to see the cartouche, which has very obvious signs of carved glyphs over top of one another.
I wish you would have pointed it out because this is a little bit of a teaching problem. You should never take for dare per scontato, take for granted that people know like she said it's very evident that there is what did she say again?
Don't believe me? All you have to do is just shift your gaze a little to the left to see the cartouche, which has very obvious signs of carved glyphs over top
Very obvious signs of carved glyphs over the top
of one another.
of one another. It would have been nice if you could, in fact, if you watch this, Professor, if you could point these out to us, because I am not familiar with these symbols at all. In fact, whenever I work on anything Egypt related, I ask the Egyptologist from Rome, that is one of the members of my team, because I'm not able of reading hieroglyphs, since you are. And it would be nice if you could provide maybe a screenshot where you write for me, oh, this is one part, like this piece belongs to one set of inscription, but the circle, for instance, is part of the secondary that was added later. Because to me, it's not obvious. I'm glad it's obvious to you, Southern Eastern. I don't know if you're joking, but to me, this isn't as obvious. I can see though that there is some plaster gone. I guess this is what it is, the white here, but or maybe this piece, this section here. Clearly, this is one symbol because it's a. What is it? A wasp? Be nice if she could point it, spell it out.
Also, very quickly, while I have you all here, Joe and Aaron talked about the supposed
The
wooden
plane. The
that
plane.
was found, quote, in one of the chambers.
There's a bunch of weird stuff.
Skipping it.
Chambers, you are speaking of, but I believe that you, Joe, are talking about the Saqqara bird.
There we go.
This lovely little bird, modeled after a falcon, is
So
made...
when you look at this and people think that it could be a model for a plane, once again, if they modeled this after a plane because either they had planes or the aliens had planes, then my question is, why are you making it of wood? Unless it's like a toy. But, if they were this advanced, then I would expect us to find it made of plastic or metal, but whatever. It's a toy, at least the way I understand it. When you look at it from the side, you see the little eye and you can recognize the beak. Yeah, that's a bird. But when you look at it from the top, it actually does look like a plane. And then there is something that's to do with the tail that I'm going to present in a second. Let's see. I don't remember if she addresses that. Let's have a look.
made out of sycamore wood and was mounted onto a stick. It was discovered in 1898 during excavations at Saqqara in the tomb of Pa-di Iman and dates to around 200 BCE. We don't know what the Saqqara bird's official purpose was. It could have been a ceremonial object because falcons were representations for particular ancient Egyptian deities like Horus, but it could have also been a toy or even a masthead on a sacred boat for a religious festival.
For me, it's a toy. Also because when archaeologists say that it's ceremonial, it's archaeologists' speech to mean we don't know what it was used for. Just so you know. Every time you hear an archaeologist, and at this point some historians too, they tell you, and these bracelets that were ceremonial, and this helmet that is particularly big, ceremonial, and this sword that is different from usual, it's a little heavier, ceremonial. Ceremonial just means we haven't got a clue what that means, because we haven't found inscriptions, we haven't found literary sources, we haven't found evidence, stelae, murals, inscriptions, nothing like that. No one tells us, we don't know. Ceremonial sounds better than saying we don't know. Just so we're clear on how ceremonial works when it comes to these things. That's why I'm usually that annoys the heck out of me. Nothing against that, of course, but I know it's used. And then when archaeologists say copper alloy, it pisses me off because I'm like, could you tell me if it's bronze, if it's tin bronze, if it's arsenical bronze, if it's freaking brass or recalcum? Could you tell me what it is? No, they have to say copper alloy, and then I don't, you've told me nothing at that point. Yeah, I understand copper is in there and there is something else, but if I don't know what the constituents are, I know nothing about that object. So there is that. Anyways, yeah, let's have a look at this falcon, I think she said.
Some people have seen this bird and suggested that the ancient Egyptians had knowledge of aerodynamics, which would place the scientific development of these principles centuries earlier in the historical timeline. This is yet another object that people use to claim that ancient Egypt developed the first aircraft. Sorry to burst your...
Yeah, I mean, knowledge of aerodynamics because you are representing a bird in wood doesn't make sense. We have seen birds since, like, literally the birth of mankind. In fact, how many of us have wished we were birds? I think this is something we could... If prehistoric people could write, which would make them historical, but if prehistoric people could write, I think that that's something we would have found, either in poetry or just regular imagination. I can just imagine Paleolithic children pretending to be birds. Like, yeah, but that doesn't mean that they had knowledge of aerodynamic in the modern sense, in the engineering sense. So yeah, I agree with her with that.
Bubble yet again, but there is no evidence of this, and this little guy isn't even capable of flight. It's just too heavy and unstable. Researchers at the Institute of Aerospace Technology, Bremen, conducted a computational fluid dynamics simulation based on a 3D scan of the bird back in 2023. And the results showed that the bird demonstrates, quote, no ancient knowledge of aerodynamics. Its glide properties aren't sufficient, the center of mass is off, and the lift distribution across the wings means it would just roll uncontrollably. Though I do have to admit that, yes, looking at the Sahara bird from above, it very much does look like a plane.
You know, it reminds me, well, yeah, you know what it reminds me of? The old school planes from World War One. That's what it reminds me of, doesn't it?
But, in my opinion, so would many other basic carvings of birds. So there you have it.
Okay. Well, the only thing that she didn't mention it, so the only thing I can see that we would have to address is why they gave it this kind of ending. Because, I mean, I haven't seen a single bird with a vertical looking, although then again, when you look at it from this side, it looks less like a plane. If you look at it from this side, it looked more like a plane, the end tail of a plane. But yeah, when you look at it from the side, it looks more like a fish. Well, I guess, I mean, maybe you wanted people to be able to hold it. That could be out. Maybe it's a grip, like for a child, so the child can go like this. Maybe. I mean, that would make sense. Definitely makes more sense than thinking that this is a plane from World War One.